Elon Musk thinks you don't exist. But it's nothing personal. He thinks he doesn't exist either, at least not in the normal sense of existing. Instead, we are just immaterial software constructs running on a gigantic alien computer simulation. Musk has stated that the odds are billions to one that we are actually living in base reality, i.e., the physical universe. At the end of last year, he responded to a tweet about the anniversary of the crude tennis video game Pong, launched in 1972, by writing, 49 years later, games are photorealistic 3D worlds. What does that trend continue to imply about our reality? So, could it be that the universe is an elaborate game constructed by bored aliens? Are we really living inside a simulation? Stay tuned till the end to find out. Before we jump to any conclusion, let us understand the difference between reality and a simulation. Countless brainiacs and psychedelia enthusiasts have pondered that question for centuries, formulating theories that run the gamut from scientific to mystical. From a purely empirical standpoint, the answer seems obvious. Reality is anything we can perceive using one or more of the five senses: taste, smell, touch, hearing, and sight. But some outside-the-box thinkers, including philosophers and physicists, contend that's not necessarily the case. It is possible, they theorize, that reality is merely an ultra-high-tech computer simulation in which we sim-live, sim-work, sim-laugh, and sim-love. So what does all of this mean? If we take the red pill and step through the looking glass, simulation theory posits that we are all likely living in an extremely powerful computer program. It sounds far-fetched, but Swedish philosopher Nick Bostrom showed in 2003 that it's more probable than one might think. In his seminal paper titled, "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" Bostrom explained that future generations might have mega-computers that can run numerous and detailed simulations of their forebears. In other words, ancestor simulations, in which simulated beings are imbued with a sort of artificial consciousness, and the odds are we are products of that simulation. Then it could be the case that the vast majority of minds like ours do not belong to the original race, but rather to people simulated by the advanced descendants of an original race. It is then possible to argue that if this were the case, we would be rational to think that we are likely among the simulated minds rather than among the original biological ones. New York University philosophy professor David Chalmers described the higher being responsible for this potential hyper-realistic simulation as a programmer in the next universe, perhaps one we mortals might consider a god of some sort. Who knows? They may just be a teenager hacking into a computer and running 5 universes in the background, but it might be someone who is nonetheless omniscient, all-knowing, and all-powerful about our world. Brain spinning yet? Get used to it. The theory also builds on the argument philosophers have been having for centuries, which is that we can never know if what we are seeing is real. Simply because we perceive the world as real and material doesn't mean that it is so. In fact, the findings of quantum physics may shed some doubt on the fact that the material universe is real. The more that scientists look for the material in the material world, the more they find that it doesn't exist. Renowned physicist John Wheeler, who worked with Albert Einstein decades ago, once said physics had evolved from the premise that everything is a particle to everything is information. He also coined a phrase that's well known in scientific circles, it from bit, meaning everything is based on information. Even the definition of a particle in physics is kind of fuzzy and may in fact just be a qubit, a quantum computing bit. Even more mind-meltingly, theoretical physicist David Bohm once posed this tortuous notion: reality is what we take to be true. What we take to be true is what we believe. What we believe is based upon our perceptions. What we perceive depends on what we look for. What we look for depends on what we think. What we think depends on what we perceive. What we perceive determines what we believe. What we believe determines what we take to be true. What we take to be true is our reality. And what we take to be true, more than a few folks believe, among them tech entrepreneur Elon Musk, who famously said the odds that we're not living in a simulation are 1 in billions, might now or at least someday be merely the effect of simulated brains and nervous systems processing a simulated world. To Musk's unique way of thinking, the strongest argument for our probably being in a simulation is that, as he put in 2016, 40 years ago we had Pong, 2 rectangles and a dot. That is what games were. Now 40 years later we have photorealistic 3D simulations, with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year. And soon we'll have virtual reality, augmented reality. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, the games will become indistinguishable from reality. So how would simulated reality work? What AI is to dystopian blockbuster The Terminator, simulation theory is to the Wachowski siblings' sci-fi thriller The Matrix, which depicts as a post-apocalyptic world in which a race of machines have captured most of humanity and imprisoned their minds within an artificial reality known as the Matrix in order to harvest humans' body heat and electrochemical energy. In the film, humans going about their everyday lives didn't realize they were actually living in a simulation because a cable plugged into their neocortices beamed signals into their brains and read their reactions. One way to achieve that in the real world would be to gain a greater understanding of human consciousness and how it works, so we can produce conscious AI. The far less technical alternative is tricking our consciousness into thinking that we are in reality when we are in a video game in which non-player characters exhibit intelligent human-like behavior that passes the Turing test. Believe it or not, this is coming. In fact, quantum computing may play a major role in advancing in-game AI. In Bostrom's 2003 paper, the philosopher argued that if humans are able to survive thousands of years to reach a post-human state, one in which we have acquired most of the technological capabilities consistent with physical laws and material and energy constraints, it's likely they would have the capabilities to run ancestral simulations. That type of post-human simulator would need sufficient computing power to keep track of the detailed belief states in all human brains at all times. Why? Because it would essentially need to sense observations of birds, cars, and so on before they happened and provide simulated details of whatever was about to be observed. In the event of a simulation breakdown, the director, whether a teenager or giant-headed alien, could simply edit the states of any brains that have become aware of an anomaly before it spoils the simulation. Alternatively, the director could skip back a few seconds and rerun the simulation in a way that avoids the problem. We're likely not there yet, but we think we will be at some point. There are 10 checkpoints on the road to a full-blown simulation, and we're nearly halfway to our destination. So, is it true that it is all a simulation? Mathematicians have proved that a universal computing machine can create an artificial world that is itself capable of simulating its own world, and so on ad infinitum. In other words, simulations nest inside simulations, because fake worlds can outnumber real ones without restriction. The real multiverse would inevitably spawn a vastly greater number of virtual multiverses. Indeed, there would be a limitless tower of virtual multiverses, leaving the real one swamped in a sea of fakes. So the bottom line is this. Once we go far enough down the multiverse route, all bets are off. Reality goes into the melting pot, and there is no reason to believe we are living in anything but a Matrix-style simulation. Science is then reduced to a charade, because the simulators of our world, whoever or whatever they are, can create any pseudo-laws they please and keep changing them. Just as present-day researchers use simulations to digitally create scenarios to aid scientific study, what would happen if we eliminated mosquitoes? Our world in every moment of our past existence might be the simulated experiment of future humans. And just as scientists can terminate simulations of earthquakes, weather, etc., when they no longer provide useful data, so too can our hypothetical overlords pull the plug at any time without warning. But rest assured, it would be a quick and painless death. Then again, you might be wondering, why does any of this matter? What is the purpose of proving or disproving that life as we know it is merely a digital construct and existence simply an immensely complex experiment in someone's virtual terrarium? The broad answer is that all good science pursues truth. More specifically, our truth. If we do in fact exist inside a video game that requires our characters to perform certain quests and achievements in order to progress, wouldn't it be useful to know what kind of game we're in to increase our chances of surviving and thriving? What do you think? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe with all notifications enabled for more In Wonder content.